it was fairly obvious that people were focusing on the potassium cyanide as a primary point of interest.
Imagine standing in the silent room where one of history's most feared men took his final breath. After World War II, Nazi leader Hermann Göring was captured, tried, and sentenced to death. But hours before his execution, he stunned the world by taking a hidden cyanide capsule. His autopsy uncovered unsettling details that deepened the mystery surrounding his final moments. What did doctors discover, and why does it still fascinate historians? Join us as we uncover the facts. The autopsy that exposed Göring's final secret. While the other 10 Nazi leaders condemned at the Nuremberg trials were being led one by one to the gallows on the morning of October 16, 1946, Hermann Göring was already dead. Instead of standing beneath the executioner's noose, his body lay on an examination table, where American military doctors were about to uncover details that would leave investigators stunned for decades. The man leading the examination was Dr. John B. Wood, an American military physician, assisted by 3 medical staff members. Their job was simple in theory: determine exactly how Göring had died. But as the examination continued, what they found raised even more questions than answers. The autopsy showed that Göring's body had changed greatly during his imprisonment. He had lost a significant amount of weight after his capture, but during the months of the Nuremberg trials, he regained some of it. Better meals and regular visits from his wife had improved his physical condition, making him appear healthier than when he first entered prison. Yet beneath that healthier appearance, his body told a much darker story. Doctors found clear evidence of years of severe substance addiction. His liver had been badly damaged after decades of heavy substance use. Old injection marks were visible along the veins of his arms, while internal organs showed lasting damage from prolonged opioid dependence. The powerful man who had once stood beside Adolf Hitler had spent years relying on substances to function. Still, those findings were not the biggest surprise. When doctors carefully examined Göring's mouth and throat, they noticed tiny pieces of broken glass mixed with traces of a yellowish substance. Laboratory testing confirmed what no one wanted to believe. The substance was potassium cyanide, the same fast-acting poison known to have been used by Nazi intelligence. The concentration was extremely high, enough to end one's life within only a couple of minutes after entering the body. The evidence showed that Göring had bitten into a glass capsule before swallowing it. Small fragments of glass remained trapped between his teeth and inside the lining of his throat, providing physical proof of exactly how he had ended his life, only hours before his scheduled execution. Then investigators uncovered something even more disturbing. Among Göring's final belongings was a self-harm note addressed to the prison commander. In it, he claimed he had hidden the poison inside a jar of hair cream kept with his personal items. When officials searched the container, they discovered something astonishing. Buried inside the cream was another cyanide capsule, completely untouched. Göring had not trusted a single plan. He had secretly kept a second capsule ready as a backup, in case the first one was lost or discovered. Even while standing trial before the entire world, he had quietly prepared for every possible outcome. It revealed a level of planning and cold calculation that shocked even experienced investigators. The investigation also considered another unsettling possibility. Some officials believed Göring may have hidden cyanide capsules inside his own body during prison searches, moving them between body cavities and his personal belongings over several months to avoid detection. Although the exact method could never be proven with certainty, the official investigation concluded that he had successfully concealed the poison through a combination of hiding places until the final night. When these findings reached American investigators, many struggled to believe them. Göring had lived under constant guard inside one of the most heavily secured prisons in the world. Yet somehow, he still managed to outsmart the entire security system and choose the moment of his own death. But the disturbing discoveries from the autopsy were only the beginning. Almost immediately, new theories began spreading. How had Göring really obtained the cyanide? Who helped him? Was it smuggled into the prison, or had he hidden it from the day he was captured? More than 70 years later, historians still debate those questions, and the mystery surrounding his final hours remains one of the most controversial chapters of the Nuremberg trials. In order to understand what led Hermann Göring to such a tragic end, let us start from the very beginning. Who was Hermann Göring? Keep watching to find out. The making of Hermann Göring, before the Third Reich. Long before Hermann Göring became one of Adolf Hitler's closest allies and one of the most powerful figures in Nazi Germany, he was simply a boy growing up in Bavaria with dreams of becoming a soldier. The path that eventually led him to the center of one of history's darkest regimes began decades before World War II, shaped by privilege, ambition, war, and personal disappointment. Hermann Wilhelm Göring was born on January 12, 1893, at the Marienbad Sanatorium in Rosenheim, Bavaria. His father, Heinrich Ernst Göring, had served as a cavalry officer and later became the first Governor-General of German Southwest Africa, now known as Namibia. Because Heinrich was serving as Germany's consul general in Haiti when Hermann was born, the newborn's early life was unusual from the very beginning. Only 6 weeks after giving birth, Göring's mother, Franziska Tiefenbrunn, left him in the care of a family friend in Bavaria while she returned overseas to join her husband. For nearly 3 years, young Hermann lived apart from both parents before they finally returned to Germany. That long separation became one of the earliest defining experiences of his childhood. Hermann grew up in a large family. He had 3 older siblings, Karl, Olga, and Paula, as well as a younger brother named Albert, who would later become famous for reasons completely opposite to Hermann's. While Hermann Göring rose through the Nazi Party, his brother Albert risked his life helping Jewish people escape persecution, creating one of history's most striking family contrasts. Hermann's godfather was Hermann Eppenstein, a wealthy Jewish doctor and family friend. From childhood, Göring dreamed of becoming a soldier, spending hours staging imaginary battles and proudly wearing a Boer War uniform given to him by his father. When he turned 11, he was sent to a strict boarding school. Life there was miserable. The discipline was harsh, the food was poor, and Göring hated every moment of it. At one point, he sold his violin just to buy a train ticket home. After arriving, he pretended to be seriously ill until his parents finally agreed that he would not have to return. Back at Berg-Weldenstein, he continued living inside his own world of military adventures. He imagined defending castles from invading armies, studied stories of Teutonic knights, and filled his days with dreams of heroism. He also developed another passion, mountain climbing. As a teenager, he climbed peaks across Germany, the Austrian Alps, and even parts of the Mont Blanc region, proving that he enjoyed both danger and physical challenges. At 16, Göring entered the prestigious military academy in Berlin-Lichterfelde. There, he finally found an environment that suited him. He performed well, embraced military discipline, and graduated with distinction. His future seemed clear. In 1912, Göring officially joined the Prince Wilhelm Infantry Regiment of the Prussian Army. But life at home soon changed dramatically. His mother's relationship with Hermann Eppenstein fell apart, forcing the family to leave Berg-Weldenstein and relocate to Munich. Shortly afterward, Göring's father died, leaving another emotional mark during his early adulthood. When World War I erupted in August 1914, Göring was serving with his infantry regiment near the French border. Like thousands of young German soldiers, he entered the conflict believing it would bring glory and honor. Instead, he found himself trapped in the brutal reality of trench warfare. Months spent in cold, muddy trenches damaged his health, and he was hospitalized with severe rheumatism. During his recovery, his close friend Bruno Loerzer encouraged him to transfer into Germany's growing air service. At first, military officials rejected the request, but Göring refused to give up. Without waiting for approval, he secretly began flying as an observer alongside Loerzer. When commanders discovered what he had done, Göring faced punishment for transferring himself without permission. He was sentenced to 3 weeks of confinement, but the penalty was never carried out because his transfer soon became official. Serving together in Germany's Air Force, the two men flew dangerous reconnaissance and bombing missions over enemy territory. Their courage earned both pilots the prestigious Iron Cross First Class, one of Germany's highest military honors. After completing pilot training, Göring became a fighter pilot. During one aerial battle, he suffered a serious hip wound that kept him out of action for nearly a year. But once he recovered, he returned to the skies with even greater determination. Over the next 2 years, Göring steadily built a reputation as one of Germany's successful fighter aces. Flying with several fighter squadrons, he accumulated confirmed victories against Allied aircraft. Along the way, he received numerous military decorations, including the Zähringer Lion with swords, the Friedrich Order, the House Order of Hohenzollern, and finally, in May 1918, Germany's highest military award for bravery, the Pour le Mérite, often called the Blue Max. By the end of the war, Göring had been officially credited with 22 aerial victories. Later studies comparing German claims with Allied records found that the overwhelming majority of those victories were genuine, confirming that he had been a highly capable combat pilot. In July 1918, after the death of Wilhelm Reinhard, Göring was chosen to command Jagdgeschwader 1, the legendary Flying Circus, once led by the famous ace Manfred von Richthofen, better known as the Red Baron. Although receiving such a command was a tremendous honor, Göring's personality quickly created problems. Confident to the point of arrogance, he often clashed with the pilots under his command. In one famous incident, pilot Willy Gabriel ignored Göring's direct orders, flew into combat anyway, and returned after shooting down several enemy aircraft. Rather than praising the success, Göring punished him for disobeying commands, making himself even more unpopular within the squadron. As Germany's defeat became unavoidable in late 1918, Göring received repeated orders to withdraw his unit. Eventually, commanders instructed him to surrender the aircraft to the victorious Allies. He refused. Instead, many German pilots deliberately crashed or destroyed their own airplanes rather than hand them over. Germany's surrender shattered Göring's worldview. Like many former officers, he embraced the stab-in-the-back myth, the false belief that Germany's army had never truly been defeated on the battlefield, but had instead been betrayed by politicians, Republicans, Marxists, and Jews at home. That belief would later become one of the central ideas exploited by Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party. The end of the war also brought personal heartbreak. Göring returned home expecting to build a future with his fiancée. Instead, her wealthy family rejected him because he had come back without money, status, or security. The engagement ended, leaving him bitter, humiliated, and searching for a new purpose. Those years of military glory, national defeat, wounded pride, and growing resentment helped shape the man Hermann Göring would become. Long before he stood beside Hitler or faced justice at Nuremberg, the foundations of his future had already been laid. The ambitious young war hero was about to step into a political movement that promised revenge, restored national pride, and unlimited power. And he would embrace it more eagerly than almost anyone else. But how did a young soldier's path lead to unexpected changes? Let's find out. Love, flying, and the road that changed everything. After World War I ended, Hermann Göring refused to leave aviation behind. Flying had become more than a profession. It was the one part of his life that still gave him purpose after Germany's defeat. Like many former military pilots, he struggled to adjust to civilian life. But he was determined to remain in the cockpit. In the years immediately after the war, Göring took whatever flying jobs he could find. For a time, he performed in air shows and barnstorming events, where former fighter pilots entertained crowds with daring stunts and aerial demonstrations. It was exciting work, but it was far from stable. He also briefly worked for the Dutch aircraft manufacturer Fokker, one of Europe's leading aviation companies. Although the job kept him close to airplanes, Göring was still searching for something more permanent. By 1919, he decided to leave Germany behind for a while. After spending much of that year in Denmark, he moved to Sweden, where new opportunities were beginning to appear in commercial aviation. There, he joined Svensk Lufttrafik, one of Sweden's early airlines. The work was different from the dangerous air battles he had experienced during the war. Instead of chasing enemy aircraft, he now transported passengers and accepted private charter flights across the country. One of those flights would quietly change the course of his entire life. During the winter of 1920 and 1921, Göring was hired by Swedish nobleman Count Erik von Rosen to fly him from Stockholm to his family castle. Poor weather forced Göring to stay overnight as a guest. While exploring the castle, he noticed a strange symbol carved into the fireplace, a hooked cross that the von Rosen family used as an old family emblem and a sign of good fortune. It was the swastika. At the time, the symbol had not yet become associated with Nazi Germany. It appeared in many cultures around the world and was sometimes used as a decorative or traditional design. Still, historians often point to this visit as one of the earliest moments when Göring encountered the symbol that would later become forever linked with Adolf Hitler's movement. But that was not the most important thing waiting for him inside the castle. During his visit, Count von Rosen introduced Göring to his sister-in-law, Baroness Karin von Kansow, whose maiden name was Freien von Fock. Karin was elegant, intelligent, and came from a respected Swedish family. Although she was still legally married, her relationship with her husband had fallen apart after nearly 10 years together. She was also the mother of an 8-year-old son. For Göring, it was love at first sight. He became deeply attracted to Karin almost immediately and wasted little time asking if they could meet again after he returned to Stockholm. She agreed, and the two soon began spending long hours together. Their relationship grew quickly, despite the complications surrounding her marriage. Throughout 1921, Göring and Karin continued seeing each other whenever possible. During this period, Göring also returned to Germany to study political science at Ludwig Maximilian University in Munich. While his education occupied part of his time, his relationship with Karin remained his greatest priority. Eventually, Karin made a life-changing decision. She divorced her husband, left Sweden behind, and followed Göring to Munich. On February 3, 1922, the couple married, beginning a relationship that would become one of the strongest emotional influences in Göring's life. The newlyweds settled first in a quiet hunting lodge at Hochkreuz in the Bavarian Alps, not far from the town of Bayrischzell. Surrounded by forests and mountains, they enjoyed a peaceful life together, far removed from the political unrest that was beginning to spread across Germany. Later that same year, they moved to Obermenzing, a suburb of Munich. It seemed like the beginning of a comfortable future. Göring had found love, rebuilt his career, and started a new chapter after the devastation of war. But Munich, in 1922, was becoming the center of something much larger than either of them could have imagined. Political extremism was growing, angry speeches filled crowded beer halls, and a little-known political movement was beginning to attract frustrated veterans who believed Germany had been betrayed. Before long, Hermann Göring would meet the man who would completely reshape his future and eventually change the course of world history. How did a peaceful life turn into a dangerous political rise? Stay tuned to find out. Meeting Hitler and the rise to power. By the early 1920s, Germany was a nation in chaos. The country was struggling with economic collapse, political violence, and the humiliation of losing World War I. Millions of Germans were angry and searching for someone to blame. Hermann Göring was one of them. In 1921, Göring met a rising political figure named Adolf Hitler. At the time, Hitler was still relatively unknown outside Bavaria, leading a small political group called the National Socialist German Workers' Party, better known as the Nazi Party. His fiery speeches, promises to restore Germany's greatness, and claims that the country had been betrayed after the war deeply appealed to many former soldiers. Göring quickly became one of Hitler's supporters. Late in 1922, he officially joined the Nazi Party. Because of his military background, war record, and reputation as a decorated fighter ace, Hitler immediately recognized his value. Göring was placed in command of the party's stormtroopers, known as the SA, a paramilitary force responsible for protecting Nazi meetings, intimidating political opponents, and using violence to advance the party's goals. It did not take long before Göring found himself at the center of one of Hitler's first attempts to seize power. In November 1923, Hitler and his followers launched what became known as the Beer Hall Putsch. Their goal was to overthrow the Bavarian government and eventually march on Berlin, hoping to repeat the success of Benito Mussolini's takeover in Italy. The plan failed almost immediately. As police confronted the marchers in the streets of Munich, gunfire erupted. Several Nazis and police officers were assassinated. During the clash, Göring suffered a severe gunshot wound to the groin. The injury nearly cost him his life. With authorities preparing to arrest everyone involved in the failed uprising, Göring and his wife Karin fled across the border into Austria. Although he had escaped prison, his physical suffering was only beginning. Doctors treated his painful wound with morphine, one of the strongest painkillers available at the time. What started as medical treatment soon became a serious addiction. Göring became heavily dependent on the substance, and his behavior grew increasingly unstable. His addiction became so severe that he was admitted twice to Långbro Mental Hospital in Sweden between 1925 and 1926. There, doctors attempted to help him overcome both his dependence on morphine and the psychological effects that accompanied it. The once celebrated war hero had reached one of the lowest points of his life. Yet Göring's political ambitions had not disappeared. By 1927, after recovering enough to resume public life, he returned to Germany. The Nazi Party itself had also recovered from the disaster of the Beer Hall Putsch. Instead of trying to seize power through force, Hitler now planned to gain control through elections and legal political methods. Göring quickly found his place again within the party leadership. His connections with influential business leaders and industrialists became extremely valuable. Wealthy supporters who feared communism increasingly viewed the Nazi Party as a force capable of restoring order, and Göring helped strengthen those relationships. The party's influence continued to grow. In the 1928 national election, the Nazis won only 12 seats in the Reichstag, Germany's parliament. Göring occupied one of those seats, giving him a national political platform. Although the party was still relatively small, he had become one of Hitler's most trusted lieutenants. Over the next few years, Germany's economic crisis worsened. Mass unemployment, inflation, and political instability pushed more voters toward extremist parties. As Nazi support surged, Göring's own influence grew alongside it. The breakthrough came during the election of July 1932, when the Nazi Party captured 230 seats, becoming the largest party in the Reichstag. Göring was elected president of the Reichstag, one of the highest parliamentary positions in Germany. Instead of protecting Germany's fragile democracy, however, Göring used his office to weaken it from within. His goal was not to make parliament function more effectively. Instead, he worked tirelessly to paralyze the democratic system, creating constant political deadlock, while strengthening Hitler's path toward absolute power. At the same time, Göring gained the confidence of Germany's aging president, Paul von Hindenburg, who was 84 years old. Using his growing political influence, Göring skillfully maneuvered against successive chancellors, including Kurt von Schleicher and Franz von Papen. Through constant political pressure and behind-the-scenes negotiations, Hitler's supporters gradually convinced Hindenburg that there was no alternative. On January 30, 1933, Hindenburg appointed Adolf Hitler as Chancellor of Germany. But even then, Hitler did not yet possess complete control. Between Hitler's appointment and March 1933, Göring became one of the key architects of the Nazi takeover. Appointed Minister of the Interior for Prussia, Germany's largest and most powerful state, he immediately began transforming its institutions into instruments of Nazi control. Under Göring's leadership, the Prussian police were rapidly filled with Nazi loyalists. He also played a major role in creating the Gestapo, the secret political police that would later become one of the most feared organizations in the Third Reich. Its mission was simple: identify, arrest, and eliminate anyone considered an enemy of the Nazi regime. Göring also helped establish some of the first concentration camps. At first, these camps were officially described as places for the corrective treatment of political opponents. In reality, they quickly became centers of imprisonment, intimidation, and brutal abuse for those who dared to resist Nazi rule. Then came one of the most controversial events in modern German history. On the night of February 27, 1933, the Reichstag building was destroyed by fire. The Nazis immediately blamed the Communist Party, claiming the blaze was the beginning of a planned revolution. Although historians continued debating every detail, many believe the Nazis themselves either started or exploited the fire to justify a massive crackdown on their opponents. Göring wasted no time. Using emergency powers, he ordered the widespread arrest of communist leaders and many members of the Social Democratic Party. Thousands of political opponents were imprisoned almost overnight, leaving virtually no organized resistance inside parliament. With opposition silenced, Hitler introduced the Enabling Act. Passed on March 23, 1933, the law gave Hitler the authority to create laws without parliamentary approval, effectively destroying Germany's democratic system. It marked the legal beginning of Nazi dictatorship. For Göring, it was a remarkable transformation. In less than a decade, he had gone from a wounded fugitive struggling with substance addiction to one of the most powerful men in Germany. But with that power came responsibility for building the machinery of repression that would soon plunge Europe into war and leave millions dead. How did Göring's power grow before everything came crashing down? Keep watching to find out. From Hitler's right-hand man to his final defeat. As Hitler's power grew, Hermann Göring became one of the most powerful men in Nazi Germany. Throughout the 1930s, he collected important government positions with remarkable ease. He became head of Germany's growing air force, the Luftwaffe, which was secretly rebuilt before being officially revealed in 1935. He also served as Reich Commissioner for Aviation, master of the German hunt, and head of Germany's forests, giving him enormous influence across both military and civilian life. Göring also played a key role in strengthening Hitler's dictatorship. In 1934, he helped eliminate SA leader Ernst Röhm during the Night of the Long Knives, a violent purge that removed Hitler's political rivals. Although he later handed control of the Gestapo and concentration camps to Heinrich Himmler, Göring had already helped build the Nazi system of repression. He later took charge of Germany's four-year plan, preparing the country's economy for war, while also acting as one of Hitler's most trusted representatives in meetings with foreign leaders. Behind the scenes, Göring used his position to build incredible personal wealth. He played a leading role in stripping Jewish families of their businesses, property, and valuables as Nazi persecution intensified. He also pressured Austria into surrendering before its annexation by Germany in 1938, demonstrating both his political influence and ruthless determination. After the death of his first wife, Karin, in 1931, Göring married actress Emmy Sonnemann in 1935. 3 years later, they welcomed their only child, a daughter named Edda. Around the same time, Göring built his lavish estate, Hall, north of Berlin. Named in memory of Karin, the massive property became famous for its luxury and its enormous collection of artwork, much of it taken from Jewish collectors and occupied countries during the war. Although Göring sometimes explored diplomatic efforts to delay conflict, he remained deeply involved in Germany's military campaigns. His Luftwaffe helped launch the devastating Blitzkrieg attacks that overwhelmed Poland and several other European nations. However, as the war continued, his reputation began to collapse. The Luftwaffe failed to defeat Britain during the Battle of Britain and could not stop the growing Allied bombing campaign against Germany. Hitler's confidence in Göring slowly faded. As military defeats mounted, Göring spent more time at Hall, surrounded by luxury, while Germany's situation worsened. His long-standing dependence on substances also returned. Regular use of paracodeine, a morphine-based medication, damaged both his health and judgment, contributing to dramatic mood swings and, increasingly, erratic behavior. Despite these problems, Hitler continued to favor him for years. In 1939, Hitler officially named Göring as his successor, and in 1940 he promoted him to the unique rank of Reichsmarschall, making him the highest-ranking officer in the German armed forces. Everything changed during the final days of the war. Believing Hitler was trapped inside Berlin, Göring attempted to assume leadership based on Hitler's earlier orders. Instead of accepting this, Hitler viewed it as betrayal and stripped him of his authority. After Germany surrendered, Göring gave himself up to American forces, expecting to be treated as an important political leader rather than a defeated criminal. During his imprisonment, he finally overcame his substance addiction and defended himself forcefully at the Nuremberg trials, insisting he knew nothing about many of the regime's worst crimes and placing much of the blame on Heinrich Himmler. The judges rejected his arguments. Found guilty of war crimes and crimes against humanity, Göring was sentenced to death by hanging. Refusing to accept execution on the gallows, he secretly swallowed a cyanide capsule inside his prison cell on the night before his scheduled execution. Years later, a note he left behind revealed that he had hidden the poison inside a container of hair pomade all along, ensuring that, even in defeat, he would choose the manner of his own death. So what do you think about what the autopsy on Hermann Göring's body revealed? Let us know in the comments section below. In the end, Hermann Göring's story reveals a dark chapter of power, ambition, and destruction behind one of history's most infamous figures. His final moments exposed secrets that still raise questions today. Like, subscribe, and join us for more stories.